the statistic is 87% of real estate agents are out of the business within the first 5 years.
Wow.
Because it's not easy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, and it is the money equation too, that you're kind of, eating what you catch.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, my name is Ethan DeLeon, and I'm here with our founder and CEO of Small Nation, Jason Duff. Joining us on the show today, we have Realtor and team lead at the Hursh Group, Andrew Hursh. We want to welcome you to the Small Nation podcast, where we share some of the valuable lessons with what we have learned about entrepreneurship, real estate, economic development, and more. The point of this podcast is to create value for you, the listener, and to create a space to learn, talk about what's trending, and inspire others.
Thank you, Ethan. Welcome, Andrew.
How's it going, guys?
We've got the Andrew Hursh here in the studio
All
today.
right.
No, it's really great to see you, Andrew. Andrew and I went to high school together, so he's a few years younger than me. But many of our mutual friends, we grew up in the big area of Huntsville, right?
We did.
You were the Bell Center though.
Bell Edition.
Bell Edition subdivision.
Yeah.
So I grew up in the village of Huntsville, and our people would go toilet paper their people.
Unfortunately, that is true. That is true. I did venture into the village of Huntsville and got some of our friends as well.
There you go.
You kids aren't toilet papering anymore. What's up with that?
That's so funny. So I was actually on a listing appointment in West Liberty. So I sell real estate in Columbus mainly. I still venture out, still service Bell Fountain in the surrounding areas. Was on a listing appointment in West Liberty. When I was leaving West Liberty, there was a house that had toilet paper, and I just started laughing. And I'm like, Nobody does that in Columbus, especially there. But
they're missing out on small town fun. That's what I say.
And
the kids these days need
harmless fun.
Need to have small town fun. Well, on that note, you're working in real estate today. You mentioned.
I am. If you call it work.
Well, that's a good sign. That means you love what you do.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, tell us, how did you get started in real estate?
So real estate has been a huge blessing to me and my family and myself personally. I got licensed in December of 2014, which seems like an eternity ago. But I was graduated college. I had some inside sales job. I had an outside sales job, which that was the goal of, when I was inside sales, I was never at my desk. And because I was always building relationships with everybody else in the office, which
they're like, why aren't you sitting at your desk calling on that phone? And you're like the little butterfly that's out and about.
100%. I would do my work and I would get everything done, but I would always, that's just who I am of, learning about others and picking their brain. So I was always at everybody else's cubicle while I was in the office, and my manager would always be like, get back at your desk. So naturally then, transitioned into a different role at a different company. Outside sales got me to Columbus. And then I really wasn't in that job for that long and kind of ran into a family friend, Tammy Oakley. She's a realtor in Marysville. And I just chewed her ear off for like 2.5 hours at a family cookout, just picked her brain about real estate. And she said, hey, if you ever decide to get your classes, and start that, let me know. I can, get you in contact with our office manager in Columbus and have that conversation. Well, I never told her, and called her like 3 months later and said, hey, Tammy, I got one class left next week and I need to take my test.
You surprised her.
So I surprised her,
oh, wow.
And then just literally stepped full go into real estate. Didn't have any other job, which, not everybody is able to do that. So I was very fortunate.
So the real estate company probably just paid you this massive salary to start, right?
That's how it works.
Unfortunately, we are 100% commission. So I actually didn't get a paycheck for 4.5 months in my real estate career, which, is hard. But I think I never forget that first year, how much money I made, which was not much at all. That always drives me, why I show up at the office every day and really enjoy it, because it's not about the money. It's about the people. But I was able to help, 6 families and build those relationships that are still today and continue to do that more and more.
Okay, so you went to college at, was it BG? Is that right? Okay.
Bowling Green.
What'd you study there?
So I just studied business communications.
Business communications. That led to sales.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I knew I needed a degree at that time in life. I think things are a little bit different now, depending on what kids want to do. Leaving high school and with the trade, schools out of, while they're in high school and with all the entrepreneurism, I mean, somebody can pick up something and have a career, right out of high school without a college education. When we grew up, I think it was more kind of mainstream to get that, college degree, which I knew I needed.
Mm-hmm.
I got that and then went into sales, and I always knew my personality would lead me to the way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So after you got started, you said, first 4 months, it was kind of a learning curve, just waiting for that first deal to come through. And we've shared some of Jason's experience in the past.
I was a terrible realtor. And I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but like the time that I started, it was really when 2005, 2006, when the economic crisis hit. And the phone was not ringing, and there weren't a lot of opportunities of buyers that were looking. So I remember, like you said in the beginning, like what you caught is what you ate. Like, and so you had to be creative and be different and have some drive and hustle. And then I spent a lot of time listening to others. Similar story or different? Like when you got started?
Yeah. So, 2014, the economy is starting to come back, naturally. And I was in Columbus, which I think is a little bit different market than, here in Logan County, where there's just more happening. However, things were just coming back. People were starting to get more comfortable and, everyone was doing a little bit better. I chose to go to an office that was very experienced, had probably 125 agents, probably had 8 to 10 teams in the office of agents that have been around for 30 years. And I was always a advocate of, they've been through the economic crisis. They've been through different markets up and down. So that's who I want to sit around. That's who I want to talk to. I want to hear their acumen, what they're talking about, the things that they're doing on a daily basis, because they know what it's like and they've been a staple in, the industry. So I was in there every day. And somebody told me probably the first 2 months, if you want to be successful in real estate, you'll show up at the office every day. Didn't mean I had to be there for 8 hours. And I tell this story to everybody, especially new agents. And I took it to heart. I literally was at the office every single day, Monday through Friday, not all day long,
right?
But I was in there for at least an hour, 2 hours. Some days I'd be in there for 7 hours, and you would just pick up on things. But then you pick up on more opportunities, and you're like, man, I've been here for 3 months, and you're out showing a client, and you're a new realtor, and they ask a question, and you're like, I've never been in this situation, but man, I remember at the office, those experienced agents talking about that.
Yeah.
So now you sound more experienced as an individual, and you just gain that experience from being around other experienced and successful agents. To what you said, the phone wasn't ringing for me as a new agent. I mean, I think that's just natural for all new agents, because somebody's going to make the biggest purchase of their life. Are they going to call an agent that's been licensed for 3 weeks?
That's the thing, is the inexperience, and even looking young and being youthful to some people translates as a big negative.
Oh, that's funny you say that, because
when I was right out of like high school, that's what they believe.
It's so funny, because when I was a new agent, I didn't have a beard. I was clean shaven, and I would meet, because I would do open houses every weekend, because that is a free opportunity to get in front of potential clients.
Yeah.
And I would have, people come through the open houses, and they're in their mid 40s, early 50s, and they're looking at me like, has this dude even bought a house? Like, am I going to call him?
Yeah.
So there is that battle that you're facing as a younger agent. It's just naturally more difficult to gain the trust of someone.
How did you overcome that?
With knowledge, and you would try to spit knowledge out when you're at the open house to make them think like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's pointing out, hey, make sure we're looking at this. Make sure we're looking at that. Hey, in the foundation, we're going to look at that. We're going to look at the furnace. We're going to look, hey, when I'm outside, I'm looking at the roof lines. I'm looking at the soffits, making sure there's no rotting. Then they're hearing these details of, okay, this guy, he knows what he's talking about.
You weren't just pushing business cards. You were there as a resource.
Correct.
And providing advice.
And you can't fake that. You had to have the humility to listen to your, the people who had been there before you, right? And then take it to heart and put it into action, right? And it was only then that people trusted you and got started, right?
100%.
So you're saying you got started with, a group and a brokerage. Can you just, for a general breakdown, for those who don't know, can you just explain the structure of kind of how, like, what a brokerage and what a group and all that means?
So to be a licensed realtor, you have to be sponsored by a licensed broker in the state of Ohio. Not sure what it is. I think it's like that in every state. Mm-hmm. So someone has to sponsor you prior to you actually taking the exam.
Oh, wow.
So again, that comes back to Tammy Oakley, was that resource for me prior to me being licensed, got me connected with Caldwell Banker, and they sponsored me, took the test, passed. So I came in as a individual agent. I was not on a team. So the broker is like the head broker. You're their responsibility. So if there's anything, that happens in a transaction, they're kind of like your backbone. They're there to support you as an agent.
Yeah.
They provide resources. So, obviously they do take some of your commission split, but you get a lot of resources. So as a new agent, that's another thing. A lot of new agents think about, I'm going to go to the broker that gives me a 95-5 split, but has no resources, and they wonder why they can't sell a house. Yeah. So I was told as a new agent, don't worry about the commission split, worry about a broker that's going to train you, give you resources to sell houses.
And you found it to be worth it.
100%, because 0% of 90% is not
it's not very much.
That's an important calculation.
Yeah. So I went to I was an individual agent. I could have joined a team.
Yeah.
Decided not to. And then eventually 2018 hired an assistant, part-time, Amy Clark. And then now she's full-time. And then I brought on my first agent and then started my own team. So now I am a team within a brokerage. So I have agents on my team that I help support and give them resources, but they also have the support of the broker as well.
So how do you market that? What does that look like to customer?
So I market as a team, sure. Agents on my team that helps benefit them when they're out on a listing appointment or they're talking to clients to say, hey, I have this. You don't just get me for the same
cost. You get the Hursh group.
You get the Hursh group. You get the resources. You get the, full-time transaction coordinator. You're going to be full hands on deck. If I need help, we're all there to support. And that's what I try to give to my team. And we do a great job. The agents on my team are unbelievable. They're unselfish. They don't get a benefit when someone else on the team has a transaction per se financially, but we're all there to help each other and take time out of our day. But that's when I was a new agent and I was an individual agent in an office. That's what everybody else did. They helped other agents that weren't on their team. They helped other individual agents. And I think it all comes around.
Real estate is stressful. And the thing that most people, until you go through the transaction cycle and all the various players that you have to get on the same page, if you try to do that yourself without other people that have been through that, it can be lonely, scary, highly emotional, because buyers and sellers, whether we like it or not, they're emotional beings. And the side of the business is very transactional, but you have to help people that when there's an inspection and these things come up on the inspection report and there's a contingency in the contract that says, this whole deal is contingent on what this piece of paper says. People can read it completely differently. And that's I think the value of working with a real estate professional, particularly a licensed realtor, is this is not their first rodeo. And then I think what Andrew just explained, what I took away is that by being a part of a team, he has got people on there that things just don't get stuck. The ball is continuing to move down the court, using a basketball analogy there. He's a basketball player. Like, the thing about it is that you're working with others to help that client. And really, you have a fiduciary responsibility, which that's another thing that, as a legal term, you are bound to represent that client, which could be a buyer, could be a seller. And then in Ohio, we have this term called dual agency, which in some contracts you can represent both.
That is
How
correct.
did you like that real estate law lesson there?
I love it. But a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
They're just uneducated. But coming back to your point on the inspection and having, and that's just one part of the transaction of many. But when you're representing your client and you're there as a professional to educate them, your client's going to react completely different than if I would just send a 60-page inspection report to my client without ever talking to them, they're going to think the house is going to fall over and burn down the moment they get the keys.
Yeah.
As a professional, your job is to educate your client, one, when you're at the house showing it to them. And that comes back to having that real estate knowledge of walking through the house, looking at the foundation, looking at the furnace, looking at the, the roof lines, and having those conversations every house you're going through, because one, you're educating them, and then they're starting to understand, okay, I've seen 15 houses. We've pointed this out. This has been how it looks on 7 of the 15. Okay, this is normal. Whereas if you would just never even point anything out, they go into contract, they get the inspection, they see this hairline crack down a poured foundation.
The house is going to fall over.
Correct. Where
90% of those houses in that class or that price point would have that same issue.
100%. A builder, if it's, I don't know what it is, but if you go build a house, they do the poured foundation. It's like if it's less than 3/8 of an inch, we're not even going to come out and look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But an uneducated buyer is going to look at that and go, "Oh my gosh, my foundation's going to cave in."
Yeah.
So it's all about education. So then by the time your client gets to the inspection report, you get, they get that from the inspector. It's a whole different reaction.
Yeah.
They're calm. They're okay. And people think a 60-page report is just, oh my gosh, what's wrong with the house?
Yeah.
I have clients that we recommend get a home inspection on a new build. Why would I do that? To protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll still get a 60-page report on a new build because no house is perfect.
Yeah.
That's right.
And if they get all that without any context, then it also looks bad on you, which also, reputation in real estate, like.
But I think that's the thing that a high percentage of people in the industry don't go to the level that you have built for your practice, which has been a differentiator for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are lots of people in many professions. You can think of your dentist, you can think of your accountant, you can think of your attorney. It's how do you find the person that you want to work with and person that's got, personality-wise, but also has the skills. Like, how do you attract new business? How do you grow your business?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Now that I've been licensed for, my goodness, 8 years, most of all my business is repeat and referrals.
Yeah.
It just, because I think you build that reputation and you've had now so many, 300 plus transactions. You have your clients that have had great experiences with you. They've trusted you. They've now had 3 or 4 transactions. You've been a resource to them. They enjoy being around you. They just trust you. You've built so many of my clients are great friends.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, they're speaking to their sphere of, hey, Steve's going to go buy a house in the next 6 months. Dude, you got to call my guy, Andrew.
Yeah.
He will take care of you, but he's also a cool guy. They have great client events, and you guys will probably hang out.
There you go.
Outside of real estate,
People buy from people that they like.
They know, like, and trust.
That
There you
too.
go.
Love that.
Yeah. All right. So take me back. You're hiring. You hired your first part-time, you said at the time, right? What were you looking for in your first hire? How did you feel about it? Like, have you ever hired anyone before that? And then what were you looking for on your team,
So I have. My aunt had a small business in Columbus, Smoothie King. She was the first one in all of Columbus in Gahanna. I took some time off college and
You worked in the business for a while, right?
Yeah, for about 2 years. I was 20.
Okay.
And that was my first time ever hiring people. And she made, and it was great because she just made me go. My Aunt Laura, she's like, no, you're going to be by yourself. You got to go interview these people.
Good luck.
I'm like, oh,
Great.
oh boy. And it wasn't like, it was so just the business, the building was still being built. So like I was interviewing these people in my car. I was just,
Yeah. Casual about it.
yeah. So like I went through that experience a long time ago. So then when I was looking to hire someone in real estate, it's completely different though, because their job relies on me being successful,
Wow. Yeah.
So it was a whole different mindset. I had a coach at the time, and it took me a year to hire someone because I went through the process. I interviewed people, didn't like any candidates, and then just like put it on the back
They're
burner.
all bad.
Yeah. I just put it on the back burner because I was naturally busy.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. My coach is like, but you can't get busier if you don't hire someone.
Isn't that the crux for so many people? It's like, if you're a hard worker, it's just faster if I just do it all than try to teach it to someone else. And if they don't do it well, like why? I know I talked to a lot of people that's their barrier to getting over that. Was that something that you struggled with?
Oh, it was, because now, never want to lose Amy because she's a huge advocate for me and my business, but
what's her phone number again?
Yeah.
Because I think everyone's looking for an Amy right now.
We keep that on lockdown. But no, it's funny because if something happened where I had to hire someone again, I wouldn't even think twice. I would probably hire too quick. Is probably what would happen.
Wow.
Because I understand the value of that position now that I've had it in my business for 4 years now, and the value she provides to my teammates and team members, it's getting over that hump. So when I brought her on in 2018, she was 15 to 20 hours. And we joke about this. I think it was when I hired her, it was the busiest month of my career. I had 13 transactions, and she was like, the second day you were like, just figure it out.
Good luck. Here's the keys. Thank you.
So all that mentorship and like learning from others, just out the door right there.
It was out the door. And then it was funny because I'm such a perfectionist with things in my business and how things look, because it's a reflection of me and that's what people are going to see. And sometimes I worry about things that I shouldn't be worrying about. And I was just always over her shoulder, like, hey, this is how you do this. This is how you do this.
Yeah.
She knows, like, people will bring things to her, our marketing department, and she'll be like, he's not going to like that.
Yeah.
So, she knows.
Yeah.
She learned from you.
She understands what I expect. And I think anybody in real estate, outside of real estate, owning their own business, if they have someone like that, takes so much off their plate and gives them so much more room to grow and make an impact on other people's lives.
For you, what was the things that were holding you back, but what were the things that you do really well and wanted to double down on that?
So great question there. Tom Ferry is a very profound real estate coach out west nationally, has a podcast, has a YouTube show. And I would watch that with, just picking up a lot of nuggets on how to be successful. And he says every real estate transaction has 11 hours of back end work. So every transaction. So you think about it, when I hired her, I think I had 43 transactions that year. So she takes 11 hours off my plate per transaction to do it properly. All the steps from moment you go into contract to the day you close. So now I'm not in the office doing clerical work. I'm out able to be in the field, meeting clients, being with clients, showing them houses, being more available to them to be a better resource.
Yeah, it frees you up to do your job better, honestly, right?
Yeah.
What you thought was going to hold you back, actually worked.
I think a lot of people forget about how much time it does take. And I think as we do a lot of work in commercial real estate, people think that we just put a sign in the window of the storefront and someone calls and then the next day they get the keys. And it is the prospecting. It is the, maybe renovations, construction, financing, security deposit, legal agreement, walkthroughs, inspections, coaching and mentorship after that. Like, we at Small Nation have developed a unique process around helping tenants that are looking for spaces be successful long-term. And the same thing is true, I think, of differentiating your practice at the Hursh Group by having someone like Amy. You're on the front side of things, but those 11 hours of time of working with a team to make sure that your client actually gets from point A to point B with the least amount of time, because time is money too. And so, it sounds like you've developed a unique process working with her that is unique to you and your firm too.
Yeah. I mean, and even more so, I think, to the new agents on my team that are new into the industry, where they don't have to go through that kind of, okay, now I have my first transaction. Now I'm spending all this time on the back end instead of growing my business. They can now spend their time on our team as a new agent, growing their business and spending their time and efforts on business building activities, being out into the community, being around their sphere to put them in a better position to succeed. Because a lot of people don't realize the statistic is 87% of real estate agents are out of the business within the first 5 years.
Wow.
because it's not easy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, and it is the money equation too, that you're kind of, eating what you catch.
Yeah. Everybody sees the Instagram realtor. No, nobody sees the back.
By the way, I think you're doing a pretty good job with your social media. So, but you're humble about it. I mean, the ones that aren't humble about it, are driving up that fancy car and throwing the $100 bills. Like,
100%. Yeah. And I like to just, social media, talking about social media and putting all that stuff out there, the Instagram realtor, I don't just show real estate because that everybody loves real estate, but it also, they don't want to see just real estate. They want to see who I am. And people get to see that on my social, my family, my wife, Jessica, and my 3 kids, the things that I like to do, my interests and stuff like that. So
I love that.
Kind of to your point, they're going to work with who they know, right? Who they trust. Like, oh, this guy has a family too. Like he's not, out just play the game.
The other thing about your market that I think people care about is they want to hire a realtor that knows the local market. What are the school districts like? Where can I get a great pizza? Where are the parks that we can hang out in? I do think when I look at a lot of your social media, you give shout outs to other local businesses. You're highlighting the events that are happening in your market and area. And it's all those things that are putting, you're actually an economic driver with your traffic and your interest to all those things that are happening in your community.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, I think it's great.
And
but that to a lot of people, that sounds like, oh, that sounds, really easy to do. But there's a lot of people that don't understand how powerful of a marketing tool that is.
Yeah. I love to support other people's businesses and especially local businesses in the community because I understand what they are going through as an entrepreneur. It's not easy. And if, they're going to hear the first person that has a bad experience, but why don't we speak of the great experiences that we have and people that give us as consumers a good and great experience on our, visits to them or being around them, especially in today's world where a lot of negativity is out online. Let's be positive and show, the light on other business owners and builders of our communities.
Yeah. And, we've had a couple guests on in the past. I think back to Tim Shermack talking about the impact that can have when you highlight your local businesses, or even Seth and Garrett, where they talked about, how far that goes for their business, by just doing that, uplifting others. So it's common on our podcast guests that talk about real estate, that they eventually get into an investment property of their own. So I have to ask, did you get into the game?
I did.
All right.
Actually,
tell us about it.
Actually came back home.
Okay.
So bought a duplex here in Bell Fountain last
Woo-hoo!
summer.
He's this big Columbus realtor and he's spending his investment capital in Bell Fountain, Ohio. Thank you.
Love it, right? But I love what you are doing in our community, and I know our community. It has a special place in my heart. Like everybody said, Logan County will always be a part of me, and just because I'm 45 minutes away doesn't mean I'm not going to come back and spend my money and support the businesses here. But also, if I can spend my money on an investment property here, and it's not only putting money back in the community, but also putting a roof over someone else's head and being a great, owner to somebody and being a resource to them. My tenant said their water heater was out last week. And I switched an appointment around and I came back here, and, obviously people are like, oh my gosh, you had to drive back to Bell Fountain. I'm like, yeah, it's a 45-minute drive. It's not that far. So I came back here, and luckily it wasn't anything bad. We just had to flip a switch, but I was able to come back and see my tenants face to face and change the, filters on the furnaces, and
I'm sure they appreciated that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's the difference of the kind of service that you as a landlord can provide if you choose to, and that I think your tenants appreciate that. And especially in this economy now where there's a lot of people that aren't putting money into renovating or improving or keeping their property safe. So that separates you.
Absolutely. And I got one of my friends who closes on his first investment property tomorrow, and it's a duplex in Buff Fountain.
Hey, there's a theme here. Well, do you mind sharing? So for a lot of people listening, they maybe have a professional job and they've, thought about investing in real estate, but can you share a little bit about, if you feel comfortable, your deal metrics, and because you own this property now for 2 years, 3 years?
About a year and a half.
Year and a half. Okay.
Year and a half.
Do you feel, has it been a good deal for you?
It has been a good deal. It was it was a $125,000 purchase. Mm-hmm. And here's what I always tell people, like Columbus markets, again, it's completely different, but it's similar. If I bought a duplex in Columbus, I would probably pay $350,000 to $450,000, depending on where the unit's at. I would get, at the time I bought it, I wouldn't have had an inspection, or I would have had an inspection. I wouldn't have been to be able to get any remedies or anything or any of that. So $125,000 here in Buff Fountain. It was multiple offers. I got an inspection. I had a remedy period. After the inspection, I got a brand new roof and money for a new furnace.
Score.
Wow.
So I have a brand new roof. Already had one new furnace. So I got the second furnace replaced. So I have 2 new furnaces in it. And I'm getting $1,300 a month.
Between the 2 units.
Between the 2 units. My mortgage is just shy of $700.
Yeah. It's cash flowing.
It's cash flowing on
day one. It really was cash flowing day one. Yeah.
Day one. Yeah. Already had tenants. And here's the funny thing. So one of my tenants moved out just because of their life circumstances changed. Wasn't because bad landlord or anything, or I didn't increase rent. And I was nervous because I was like, oh, now I got to get the unit cleaned.
Still have the mortgage.
What's been broken? Now I got to find a new tenant. How do I screen them? They hadn't even moved out yet, and I had 3 people message me on Facebook, hey, I heard your unit's going to be available. And I'm like, how did these people even find me? Like it was just so funny. And my friends in Columbus are like, are you serious? So came in, I had my cleaners, one of my past clients, so supporting her business, come down, and she cleaned the whole unit for me, so I didn't have to touch it. Came down, I had to change the locks and change other few minor things. Tenant moved in less than 30 days. And I did increase their rent $50. So that unit increased rent with the new tenant.
Yeah.
And they've been awesome.
Love hearing that. And again, I think it's hearing more of those stories of types of investment vehicles in real estate. Like you mentioned, duplexes. Some people are buying and renovating and flipping single family homes. Some folks actually start to buy their first commercial property and do a renovation for a retail store or a restaurant or an office. And so in the whole sphere of this, there's a whole different diversity of types of investments and assets that can be acquired, but it's all under that real estate investment umbrella.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know this is just one property, but so it sounds like you didn't use a property management company, right?
No.
Okay, so that's on the residential side. Jason, do we use a property management company for our
No,
commercial?
we had to create one.
Tell me why.
Well, I think it is the connection and there's also expense, and in a lot of small towns, the term property management company just doesn't exist. And so,
very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we answer the phone if there's a customer service issue. We have contractors that are plumbers and electricians and have skills in carpentry and repair. We depend on them. Yeah. And as you start to grow your portfolio, the management of those calls and of those inquiries, increase. And I think a lot of it is just developing good systems, practices, and processes to maintain your properties. I mean, Andrew mentioned filter changes. For the longest time, we just ask in our lease agreement for the tenants to change the filters. I know in my own home, I mean well to change the filters, but time flies by, and then a tenant calls and says, "Hey, my furnace isn't working," and we go there to the property, and I pull out the filter.
It's black.
It's worse than that. I mean, and so what we did to help tenants is that we incorporated the filter changes into our process, and we bill them a reasonable cost for doing that. And by sending our team member in, we can also, ask them the question, hey, how's everything else working at your property? They're also kind of walking through the space, and they can identify if they see things that are concerning that need to be raised to the, to the owner or need to be raised to the tenant.
Yeah.
That's actually a great tactic. And one of the reasons I was talking to one of my friends back in Columbus who owns some properties, and he said, you changing the filter is a great opportunity to get in the house to see what's going on, but also you get to be face to face with your tenant, and it creates that human element of, I'm not just paying some random guy in Columbus. They know who I am. They see my face, and it changes the whole aspect of, I think, how they treat your property, how they pay you on time. And it just creates a different level of service, but also a different level of relationship between tenant and landlord.
Yeah.
It humanizes it.
Yep.
Agreed.
It takes another level of intentionality from your end, though, right?
For sure.
But it makes a difference.
But like Jason said, we answer the phone. That's another thing.
There's not press 1 for this, press 2 for that.
Yeah.
Leave a voicemail. And I think it goes back to, you said earlier, just showing up, making yourself available. If there's an inquiry, a call, a lead, like there's so many people that just let it sit in the email inbox.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It sounds simple, but it makes a difference. There's one thing we have not touched on, and I want to dive into it, and that is that you are on a TV show now.
I am so
about
jealous.
this.
That's
How
incredible.
Does this work?
Yeah. So my first episode is supposed to air December 10th. It's called The American Dream TV, Selling Columbus. It will also be on Apple TV, Amazon Prime, and Roku. And it is a national Emmy-nominated show that is in other markets. In Columbus, I think there's 10 of us agents, and they want it to be 80% lifestyle, 20% real estate. So, which fits into kind of just who I am as an individual of, going back to what Jason said about how I like to highlight local businesses. That's all this show is. I'm highlighting local businesses, sharing community and what that is around Columbus and the surrounding areas, and then throwing in a little real estate. So it's going to be a fun show. I've already recorded my first episode. It was in Old Hilliard, so I highlighted Crooked Can Brewing Company.
Nice. And
then one of my friends is new builds in Hilliard.
Love that. And I'm hearing that Hilliard's getting a lot of new things. Hearing some rumors on the street about a new winery maybe coming.
There is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course,
there was
an
article in the Columbus Dispatch recently. So, yeah, no. I'm not a big beer guy, but I'll drink wine. So.
Yeah.
So it looks like Jason's going to be visiting Hilliard.
Yes.
So what does that look like? The TV crew just shows up and just follows you around?
Yeah. Well, so we have to, and that's the other thing, and kind of how this differentiates itself from like what you see on TV in the HD TV, where they kind of basically have full autonomy of what's going to happen on the episode. You have to film all day. You're filming multiple days. This is, I'm the host, also executive producer, where I come up with the whole episode. I have to write it all down. I'm sending it to the producers. We have a pre-production call. We go over what I want to do and what my plan of attack is. Plan B. What if it rains on that day? You have to have a plan B. And then they approve it, which is, again, I've done one episode. So it was a really cool process to kind of go through that to see, man, like I don't just show up. I have to like plan this out and say, hey, this is who I'm meeting with. This is what we're going to talk about. Here's my questions I'm going to ask them.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I plan on showing. And then when we show, it actually made it easier when I went to film. So we got the videographer. We showed up. My episode is 4 minutes and 25 seconds of a 30-minute show. And I think we filmed for 6 hours.
Yeah.
And they'll take and cut that to get the best content and clips that relates to the story that needs to be told.
Absolutely. So then after I recorded, I had 2 days, and then I had to get back in the system and then put everything in there. What are the 3 main points that you want to highlight to ensure that they're on the show? And you have to give all their full names, their full titles, so then they can put everything on the screen. I've seen my episode, and I'm super thrilled for everybody else to see it, because I think it highlights, again, that community, and it's me highlighting another business and showing a house and sprinkling that in there. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy doing that.
That's awesome.
Content is everything. And we have learned this on the podcast, and this is a big credit to Ethan pushing me out of my comfort zone in the beginning to say, you keep talking about doing this podcast, so you just need to do it. So today we are recording, this is episode 30 something, right?
I want to say 27.
Okay, so we're not quite there yet, but almost to 30 episodes. And here's what I've learned is that the amount of text and emails or people catching me on the street to say, I listened, I watched, I learned this, and then all the guests, they share that content with their audience. So I think this is the power of how marketing is changing today, is that we are, we're creating this content. If we do our job and make it valuable and interesting and insightful, other people will want to listen, and then they'll incorporate those practices into their business.
100%. I've always thought it myself, actually doing a podcast, and not on real estate. Just I want to, and now doing this, I'm like, this is fun.
Do it. Yes, it's a good time.
You meet people, and I think what we've really enjoyed is storytelling, how we got started, how the first project began, and then the people that were in the original days, the OGs, and then how we build advisors and friends and hearing about their companies, their tips. I mean, that really is why we created this podcast, and it's working.
And rather than coming to their own conclusions about who Small Nation is or where they come from, you can find out for yourself, or, we don't have to take the time to explain, an hour-long story. Go check it out on the podcast. So certainly been a joy for us. And, to those listening, thank you so much for, being a part of this journey with us. But yeah, good luck with your show, man. That sounds like a lot of fun.
I'll be watching. I'm excited.
I hope that.
And I want to see you with the Emmy up on the stage, acceptance speech. Get ready for that. So
yeah. No. All right, Jason, you have a kind of a summary or gold nugget for us here today?
Well, there's a few today. I just want to say that the biggest one that I took away from Andrew is the importance of just showing up. I think that naturally, he was gifted in sales and building relationships. But I think the thing is, some people say it's like, that person's just lucky. It's not about luck. It is about being the right place at the right time, but you've got to find what that right place is, and you've got to show up. So that meant a lot to me, and I think that for the listeners, that's going to be really important. And then the other thing is finding ways to be a resource and adding value. In every conversation, there are people that push business cards. There are people that look the part, and I've been to a lot of open houses. They smile, they welcome you, and they say, I'm not going to bother you. But then there are questions that come up. And I think it's, again, walking around and being that resource, but it takes practice and takes, experience to share the knowledge of things to know. But that, even when you're young and inexperienced, that is going to be the game changer, is how can you be a resource to someone and add that value. And then the other thing I think you mentioned, he used the word coach. Did you pick up on that?
Yep.
Is being willing to surround yourself with people that have had life experience that you have yet to experience, but you want to experience.
Yeah.
So I think it's always investing in yourself. And I think this leads to where I'd like to hear from him is, what are the books, the podcasts, the things that right now are filling you up?
No, I do like what you say, show up. I mean, and that's a big thing for me is showing up, being open to being coached. And I think my biggest thing is what I really have tried to change over the last couple of years, or not change, just be more conscious of, is just surround yourself with good people. And I think at the end of the day, if you focus on showing up and surrounding yourself with good people, things are going to be positive on all aspects of your life. Mm-hmm. But one of the great books that kind of changed some of the things I've done in real estate was Giftology.
So I think you and I had this conversation. John Rulin is a personal friend of mine. I'm
jealous.
We met at a conference through a mutual friend before John even wrote his book. And I encourage everyone that is listening to check it out, this whole idea of giftology. And I know Andrew practices it, because right after he got his license, I show up at the front door at my house. And keep in mind, I had not done business with him, mm-hmm. but I got this beautiful engraved wine and cheese board with my name on it.
Nice.
And again, I think it was, you tell me, like, that's what you had learned. And I will tell you, after that, I'm always thinking of Andrew, how can I refer leads and opportunities to him? Because that meant so much to me.
I appreciate that. And there's another book, The Referral of a Lifetime.
All right.
Unbelievable book. It's not real estate related, but I gift those 2 books out to people a lot. And I think there's just so much value. And I always tell people that. I'm like, I hope you find as much value as I did in these books. And you can use them outside of real estate, and they can be very impactful for your life. So,
yeah, I am much more apt to read a book if it's gifted to me from someone that, I know and respect. Like, it just, because obviously there's intentional, right?
100%. Because nobody does that.
Idea,
Not many people gift books.
Yeah. Cool. Last thing is, where can people find you, man? Where can people keep up with what's happening with you?
Yeah. So, social media, at Hursh, on Instagram is HURSSHHH. You can find me on Facebook, or you can text me at 937-844-1431.
All right.
You're gonna love
brave.
what you're gonna get.
That is not a requirement of this podcast, but he went for it. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in and checking out the Small Nation podcast. You can find us anywhere that you listen to your podcast, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and even the Small Nation YouTube channel. I hope you were able to pull some value from that conversation, and we hope to see you in the next one. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like, comment, or a 5-star review to help more people to discover this podcast. Stay tuned to Small Nation on social media to keep up with all the cool projects happening here. And until next time, this is Ethan with the Small Nation podcast signing off. Thanks, everybody.